Regular Show is a show about a group of park workers that have to maintain the park. Despite the show's almost laughably bland premise, the series itself proves to be anything but. From killer bears to giant heads, it seems as if all bets are off when following the misadventures of Mordecai and Rigby.
That horse right there fell out of the sky and has to pass a US history test or the whole earth is gonna explode.
What?
Another show that uses its premise to play off your expectations is Invincible, particularly with the main protagonist's father and his true motives in nature. He's sold off as almost a Superman-like character, but by the end of the first episode, that's proven to be false. With Invincible in particular coming back this week, why don't I combine the two shows' premises to see if the Regular Show gang have the means to defeat someone as powerful, fast, as well as skilled as Omni-Man. For this scenario, I'll be placing Omni-Man in the Regular Show universe. So let's say that the planet Viltrum is a place in the Regular Show universe. With no Guardians of the Globe or any other superheroes, let's say that Nolan starts off his conquest rather quickly, leaving it up to Mordecai, Rigby, Muscle Man, Hi-Fi Ghost, Benson, and Skips, as well as Pops, to step in. To those of you guys who remember a video like this video is kind of a pseudo-successor to my Uncle Grandpa versus Omni-Man video. And while Omni-Man was fighting a cartoon god, I think that putting him against some park workers will kind of give him a break. Like, he can't be that weak, right? But that video's pretty old, so for all the new subscribers I've gained since then, or some of the OGs who forgot Omni-Man's metas, let's take a refresher. Nolan Grayson, as you know, was a member of the highly prestigious Viltrum Empire. These guys are a warrior culture that uses strength to bring in other planets into its empire, first trying diplomatically, but if the planet were to refuse, they become walking mass extinction events. One example of this is during Season 1, where Omni-Man was able to single-handedly destroy the Flaxen homeworld civilization, with the dust trails alone being calculated to be equivalent to anywhere from 1 teraton at a low end, but they can get to multi-continental. This is consistent as Omni-Man himself remarks that he was able to divert a meteor the size of Texas. I know for most Americans who watch the channel, that doesn't sound too crazy, it's a state after all, but consider that if Texas were its own country, it would be top 40 out of 193 countries in the entire world. Like, unironically, you could fit 10 European countries in Texas. So with that piece of context, you'll understand me when I say that Omni-Man being able to divert such a large landmass will be equivalent to him exerting force at a low end being in the petatons and at a high end being in the exatons, which is enough force to destroy multiple continents or enough force to destroy a moon. This moon level scaling is consistent because a character named Thrag, basically the leader of the Viltrumites, leads a mass exodus to the planet Earth. And with the 37 Viltrumites, he states that they can all split the planet apart, which by itself is a feat equivalent to around small planetary, but dividing the feat by 37, seeing as there's 37 participants, each member would have to be outputting force equivalent to around moon level. Keep in mind though, Thrag is probably a decent amount of this feat by himself, as he nags most Viltrumites even if they try like jump him, and Omni-Man by himself can fight on par with Thrag to a degree, and I think that Invincible characters should be around multi-continental to moon level at a consistent mid-end. But for a higher end interpretation, you could try to argue planetary, as alongside his son and Thaddeus, they were able to destroy the planet Viltrum. Once again, we have to divide the value by 3, and it's been determined that each member will be outputting anywhere from as low as small to even as high as large planetary amounts of energy during this entire sequence. I don't really like scaling any of these people to this feat right here due to some very crucial context, but this is a Regular Show video. This is not the day to talk about serious metas. I'll address that cope sometime later. But another cope argument basically revolves around Omni-Man chilling by a black hole, subsequently no-selling its gravitational pull as well. For all my Godzilla fans, you should know that black hole scaling can get kinda crazy, but unlike the Lizard King, he doesn't do anything really notable to it. He doesn't destroy it, he doesn't no-sell being inside of it, and he's actually implied to be killed if he went in it, so yeah, he only no-sells his gravitational pull. But don't feel that bad, because despite it not getting him to solar system level, according to Long's takes, he saw a calculation that got all the way up to moon level, which would actually make it pretty consistent. Though I should note, he said it was a very nice calculation. Moving on to his speed now, he should be around massively faster than the speed of light, as he was able to fly to the planet Thraxia in around a month. The location of the planet Thraxia kind of fluctuates depending on which continuity you're using. In the comic book continuity, it's said to be in the Vertigo supercluster, but much more specifically, it's said to be a couple galaxies away in the show. A couple bare minimum means at least 2, so we can say that in a month's time, Nolan was able to cross 2 entire galaxies. And when calculated, we can say that Nolan can fly at speeds equivalent to 1.85 to as high as 6.37 million times faster than the speed of light. Keep in mind the month's timing estimate comes from how long the finale of season 1 is from episode 1 of season 2. But consider Omni-Man's been king for a minute, and the fact that he wasn't even traveling straight to Thraxia, as he stopped around, sat down, took his time, then even sat around and looked at black holes. So overall, it's safe to say that this estimate is a gross lowball of his actual true speed, all things considered. You may say this only scales to his travel speed, but Omni-Man was able to watch things and observe things and stop and sit down on moons and stuff, so it's safe to say his perception somewhat scales to his travel speed as he was able to perceive everything going on. So in conclusion, Omni-Man at lowballed is a country to continental level threat. At a mid-end, he would be anywhere from moon to small planetary, and at best, he's planetary to large planetary. He can fly at massively faster light speeds. So with all that out the way, let us answer if the regular show gang could beat him. Alright, I'm gonna keep it a buck. The regular show crew have multiple ways to beat Omni-Man, but instead of talking about one way, I'm gonna talk about 3 distinct categories of ways that can beat Omni-Man, since this is what most of you guys want to see anyways. So starting off with category number 1, power scaling using outliers. Regular show is a pretty weird show, and this extends to its scaling as well, because you'll have episodes where Rigby can survive being inside of a black hole, and then another episode he gets killed by getting slammed through a table. So yeah, it's kind of just like pick your poison when talking about the show, but ignoring consistency and using a high end, let's get into a really funny meta that happens during the finale of regular show. Anti-Pops attempts to blast away Mordecai and Rigby, only for them to use the power to seemingly nullify the attack. The same blasts that are shown to casually planet bust like 30 seconds later as well. And keep in mind how the power is actually able to take a prolonged blast before slowly breaking apart. Now compared to how casually Skip breaks it.
In your keyboard, right, Skips? Right.
Yeah, we're getting pretty dumb today. But speaking of dumb, Mordecai and Rigby, unlike Omni-Man, are actually shown to survive the explosion of an entire planet point blank. Keep in mind, regular show characters have many ways to boost their base attack potency, using stuff like Death Kwon Do or tools like the Hammers of Justice. As for speed now, Mordecai and Rigby are pretty consistently able to react to Anti-Pops, who's literally the strongest antagonist in the verse, with only Pops being able to match them. This is important because the verse has MFTO plus galaxy crossing feats that we'll get into later. So unironically, if you use outliers, base Mordecai and Rigby, as well as everyone else in the crew, would be able to just jump Omni-Man. You know, maybe Skips has the Hammers of Justice, and Mordecai and Rigby and everyone else have Death Kwon Do, but I admit this chain of scaling is remarkably inconsistent, and it's just for jokes. And in all seriousness, it's not how I think the crew would approach Omni-Man, so let's get into more serious metas. Category 2. The regular show gang have a variety of trinkets and goo gags that would pretty much do the trick. For starters, they have the previously mentioned power, which can send anyone to anywhere at any point of time. You remember that black hole that was narratively implied to be Omni-Man's end? Yeah, Mordecai and Rigby could just send them to an even bigger black hole. Or they could just send them to the beginning or end of time. So the power is an actual win con, and they don't even have to be right in front of Omni-Man to use it. So they can see Omni-Man on TV doing his thing and just pull out the power, and no one wouldn't even know what hit him. They also have access to the Book of Park records, which can just literally rewrite reality as well as change the future and past. And well, what's Omni-Man gonna do when Mordecai and Rigby write Omni-Man flies into the sun? The gang also has orbs that can trap Omni-Man in a time loop. And moving on to a really funny dumb meta now, Mordecai and Rigby, by simply dressing up really cool, could create a black hole singularity that would go on to destroy the entire universe. Pretty dumb stuff for sure, but hey, if it works, it works. But now moving on to the final category now, we're gonna have to talk about consistent scaling. Yes, the first category was scaling based, but we just used ridiculous outliers that don't find themselves applicable in a combat situation. Like, are you gonna look at this fight right here and tell me with a straight face, this is a battle of planet busters? Of course not. So let's move on to characters who are. Mordecai and Rigby are friends with the baby ducks, as well as the geese by the end of the series. And they could combine to create a mech that would be able to destroy another mech that could casually throw the moon, as well as split it in half. Due to how fast and seamless both of these feats are, they would both come out to around large planetary. Literally Omni-Man's wanked high-end meta they have casually as a baseline for all their stats. But moving on to higher ends now, in this same mech, they were able to utilize the Galaxy Sword, which was able to destroy the planet Jupiter. It was also able to grow to the size of an entire galaxy in sheer seconds. So due to its size, as well as the speed of the weapon, any value would just be faster than Omni-Man automatically, because he takes weeks to travel to galaxies, while this sword was able to encompass them in seconds. As for attack potency now, bare minimum, this attack would be multi-solar system, but at a high end, you know, it could probably be galaxy level. The Galaxy Sword is galaxy level, you know, real mind-blowing stuff there. The mech was also casually able to wipe the surface of the entire planet, so there's that as well. Safe to say that Omni-Man a gangster till the baby ducks show up. But we can get even funnier, because we can make an argument that even Pops could check Omni-Man for his fade, as Pops scales the Anti-Pops, who just by spazzing out was stated to be breaking the fabric of reality. There's also the fact that him and Pops are destined to destroy the universe in their entire battle. But moving on to speed for a second now, Anti-Pops, due to being the final boss of the show, would upscale any previously mentioned speed feat, and that would include the baby ducks. So that's the speed feat I was talking about when I said that Mordecai and Rigby could react to him, you know, MFTO plus for base guys. But anyways, as previously mentioned, Pops scales to all of this, but this universal power is actually a low end, because the regular show cosmology actually contains fifth dimension dimensional spaces, meaning that pops and anti-pops can not only destroy the 3D observable universe, but more than likely 4th and even 5th dimensional spaces. The freaking when pops versus Heisei Godzilla is a discussion, but anyways, it goes without saying, using these potential solar to even universal busters, Omni-Man would stand no chance at all, even if you felt like granting Omni-Man some of his cope arguments. So in conclusion, it's safe to say that for the sake of Omni-Man's character / redemption, it's pretty good that he didn't find himself on a seemingly regular Earth that ultimately proved to be anything but. If you made it to the end of this video, I'd like to thank you. Which of these metas surprised you the most? I know I was surprised when looking into some of this stuff, but I want to thank you guys once again because you give me an outlet to talk about stuff like this. And hey, if you're new here, consider subscribing. We're on the road to 20K and I think we can hit it. If you want to get into contact with me, my socials are in my description and I have a Discord as well. I'll see you guys next week, but until then, stay big, G fans.